Hey everyone, today I've got Nina and Walker Noon in the studio. So a lot of you have actually talked with Walker. Walker is one of the agents on our team and also helps a lot behind the scenes. And then Nina is Walker's wife. And about just under a year ago, they bought their first house hack. So I asked them to come on here to share their background about just setting their goals, buying their first house, using it as a future rental property, going under contract, managing it, living with roommates, especially as a married couple, and then kind of moving on as to future plans. So guys, got to have you here.
Hey Chris, thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah.
It's not every day you get to talk to your spouse's boss, so this is pretty fun. This is exciting.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm finally get to sit in this position. I've seen it so many times from the sidelines, so.
Well, I'm glad to have you guys on here. And Nina, I got to pick on you first because as Walker and I and a lot of people are talking about in real estate, investing and really house hacking is a very male-dominated sport. And typically with couples, it's usually the husband leading the charge, and some degree behind them, the girl is being dragged along a lot of times to stereotype it. So what was your reaction to house hacking? How did you hear about it? And I know Walker took the lead, but from your perspective, how did it play out?
Yeah, no, for sure. That is exactly what happened. We moved in together, a couple years before we bought this house, and we were renting a property in Denver. And Walker started listening to a ton of podcasts, reading a ton of books, listening to Audible books. And he kind of hit me full force with hey, I really think we need to have roommates. And I was like, what are you talking about? We just moved in together. Why would we bring in someone to live with us that we don't know? And it was kind of he pitched it on such a high level of this is a great source of income. We have people around all the time, we won't even notice. And I was like, no, this is wrong. No.
And this was for a roommate in the rental?
Yeah, this was, yes and no. We'd always planned on buying a house. Walker's super interested in real estate. We kind of knew that we would be buying soon, or at least trying to buy soon. And he had pitched it we can definitely buy soon, and then we can buy a ton more and rent all of those out. And, I didn't grow up, my parents don't have rental properties. This wasn't something I was familiar with at all. And that's just kind of how it started. I was very hesitant, very almost put my guard up, automatically no. And so it took a few months of conversations really of him slowing it down, dumbing it down to this is why we want this, and not so much hey, we need this and this is we're doing it.
Yeah, I've rethought about that a lot.
Yeah, what's your side of the story, Walker?
I came with the completely wrong approach, and I started with, hey, let's buy a house with a couple extra bedrooms and let's rent them out. Yeah. And that was it. That was my pitch. It wasn't hey, there's a way to, live for free, have someone else pay our mortgage. No, it was just straight to the point, hey, we should get roommates. And she goes, she just shut down.
Yeah.
She's like, no, why would we do that?
Here's the problem. You didn't lead with a benefit.
I did.
You got to lead with a benefit.
I didn't lead with the why.
Yeah. This is the end goal. It makes us in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think now obviously that I know more about it and we're doing this in practice. Walker had listened to so many smart people on these podcasts and so many people who had taught him to think this way, and I'd never heard anything about it. So once I started, he shared with me after in this month, it was over a few months that it of conversation. So he'd shared with me hey, just listen to this, or hey, read this article or read about it a little bit and familiarize yourself with what I'm trying to say, because I didn't deliver the message how I wanted to. And that definitely helped, because there's so many smart people, and clearly it's so successful in building, financial freedom, financial success, at least some sort of, we just started our careers a couple of years ago. We're not that far into it, but it changed our mindset of you know what, we can do that. We don't have to expect that we're working until 65 if we just learn a little bit about a different approach with real estate.
So out of the podcast and blogs he shared, was there one that was the aha moment for you?
I don't know if it was the aha moment or if it was just timing was incredibly right. So one of my roommates from college actually moved to Denver at the tail end of when we were renting, and she didn't have a job, didn't know anyone here besides us, and so it was kind of a pretty natural transition. And we were like, you know what, take the extra bedroom in our rental property and we'll figure it out as we go. So she moved in with us in January of 2020, and we had already started our like a really shallow house search. Like we knew that our lease was through June, so we were like, we can't buy anything right now, but we'd started talking about it, and like kind of in that 6-month period we saw how it went living with her, which was really easy because I'd lived with her for 3 years in college. So I wasn't expecting anything crazy. She was a great roommate. She is a great roommate. But yeah, it kind of made sense then when we started looking at houses, and Walker and I kept having these roommate conversations. I was like, yeah, you know what? It's been totally fine having her there and having us live there. It was just the three of us then, and now our situation is a little bit different. But I think it just opened my eyes having that at the time, which I thought was temporary. But like having it, living with it, and then when we bought our house, it was a pretty easy conversation.
And when you guys started your house hunt in whatever December, January time frame, it was obviously you were going in there with the hopes, Walker, of house hacking with roommates. And Nina, for you, were you just going in hey, this is going to be our forever home? Hey, we're going to live here for a year or two and turn into a rental? Like, what was when you started, what was your frame of mind?
Yeah, we were actually all over the board, or I think so. Like, some of the houses we toured they were fixer-uppers. When we were like, okay, you know what? We can do it. It's fine. This one's really cheap. Like, we can get it and just fix it. And then the one we ended up in that I absolutely adore, like, it could be a forever home or at least, like, a long-term home, but we've changed our mindset of, like, it doesn't have to be our forever home right now. Yeah. Like, we're very much excited, to continue getting properties and touring around, and we've kind of started, touring a little bit right now just for fun. But yeah, I definitely feel an appropriate level of detached from the house. I love it. Love living there. Great location. Serves us well. But we'll still have it. That's the thing. We're not going to sell it. I'd be anti-selling it for sure.
So your mindset shifted. You guys are out there hunting, and Walker, you were the agent on this deal, obviously, for you guys. What was the hunting process like, and what did you end up getting? Like, just give us a quick rundown on what you looked at, what the market was like, and then let's talk about the current house.
We started looking pretty early in December just to kind of get a feel for what was in the area. We lived in Corey, Merrill at the time, right next to Wash Park, and we were set on that area. And so having that time to kind of look around, we expanded the search and kind of moved west, east, all over the place, but kind of stayed more central. And during that time, pre-COVID, there was a lot of houses to look at. I mean, we made our way around, had a good idea for what we wanted. Living with the roommate, we did realize having 3 people to 1 restroom was really tough.
Not a great ratio, right?
Not a great ratio. And so there were a couple houses that had 3 bedrooms to 1 bath, and it was like, that's going to be tough, especially having roommates. The house search was fun, a good experience. Ended up, I think, putting 5 offers in, and we probably got the best one accepted. I would say it was a learning experience at first. Every time we'd miss out on an offer, it'd be like, I'd call the agent and be like, hey, what do we need? What are we missing? And so I'd learn something every now and then, like, oh, hey, like escalation clause, appraisal gap, all these little things you could do that I had no clue. That was my first contract, right? Like, I was looking up YouTube videos. I was talking to my managing broker at a commercial.
Because at the time, you're a commercial broker.
I was,
and that's what you specialize in. And no one did residential at your brokerage, right?
That is correct. Yeah. I had my schoolwork from the real estate classes that I took, and it was like all residential. And so I pulled all that out, and I'm like flipping through it, like looking at contracts. I'm like, oh man, this is way different. So it was a learning experience, but it was fun. I'm glad to have it like behind us now.
Yeah.
Get the first one out of the way, but it was a good process, and we've definitely refined our search for the next one. We know kind of a lot more specific search.
All right, so let's talk some numbers. So where did you end up buying this house at? Your future rental, where is it?
Right now?
Yeah, just
all right. Okay, so we live in Virginia Village. We absolutely adore the neighborhood, and which I didn't expect. When Walker says we were set on Corey Merrill, like my heart was set on Corey Merrill. It's a beautiful neighborhood. so close to the park, so central Denver. And so I was like, I can't imagine not living here. Of course, that didn't happen, but I kind of feel the same about this neighborhood. And it's crazy because it's so close. I can take a jog over to our old rental in like less than 10 minutes, and it's awesome. But yeah, so I think actually moving forward, looking at this next house, obviously it'd be great to find something in Corey Merrill, Wash Park, Platt Park. But I love this neighborhood too, and it's a little bit, I don't want to say it's flying under the radar, definitely a sought after neighborhood for sure, just like a hair under, and so I feel like it's a really good spot for us. The houses are typically newer builds, they're larger. There's a lot of like 2-bed 1-bath in the Wash Park, Corey Merrill neighborhoods, which would be totally fine for us in our next the next move we make. But yeah, this neighborhood's been really fun, I think. What do you think?
I've loved it so far. It's been good. We're close. We have a neighborhood retail center right across the street. Ace Hardware is there. It's been great for house projects. Yeah. Convenient.
Like you can walk there?
Walk there,
oh, nice.
Grab a few things, come back. Like no pause in kind of what I'm doing. So yeah, it's been good. And we got lucky and found the house in the first week of the COVID shutdown. And surprising or not, we ended up going under contract below asking, $10,000 below asking. And I mean, it was.
Well, that was just lucky timing when it first shut down
thing.
like that 4 to 6 weeks. There was just like no news was going on, and a lot of properties were going for a couple bucks under list like that.
Yeah, I mean, Nina,
the exact opposite of now.
It's the exact opposite of now, which is crazy. And I remember Nina.
So what was the purchase price?
So the purchase price was $555.
Okay, so list at $560, went at $550, and you're saying Nina had. Sorry, I cut you off.
So we were looking at houses for a while, and Nina was the one that would see a house. She'd be like, "All right, let's go see this."
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay," and she showed me this house, and it was right above our price range when she first showed it to me, and I was like, "No, let's keep looking elsewhere," and. What was it? 7 days later,
yeah.
After the shutdown, she showed it to me again. She goes, "Hey, let's go look at it." I was like, "All right, why not? Let's go."
Yeah. No, it was awesome that Walker represented us because, like he said, like I would see something that looked so attractive to me and perfect, and I'd send it to him. And even for the ones that were out of our price range that we had set for ourselves, I was like, let's just go look. Like, let me see. Let's find, because this whole process we were learning what was important to us, and you
see what that value. Hey, it's $650,000.
Exactly.
Like, what is that extra $100,000 buying us?
Exactly, and Walker kind of mentioned it earlier, but everything we learned on the previous contracts that fell through, I would go into these showings knowing like, okay, just because this is the list price doesn't necessarily mean like. We can get strategic with this because we'd learned so much from everything that he had done before, which at the time felt painful, but now looking back, I'm like, that was invaluable that we just kind of threw ourselves into the fire. Walker specifically, like he learned so much, and I'm not kidding, he was YouTubing, he was calling friends, he was calling, friends of friends saying like, help, I need to get this, help me out. And he was learning so much, which was incredible.
That's an awesome trait. Like that's how you become successful. Just hey, you figure it out.
I know. And even switching from commercial to now working on this team, like you can see his interests are like your interests are so peaked, because before in commercial you were still so interested on this side and you were spending your free time learning about this side. And so now that you work in it, I feel like you're really harboring on that natural interest and natural instinct that led us to be successful, in our personal lives too with this house. But we toured this house, I'd sent him this house, and I was getting really excited, kind of on the higher end of our budget, and he was like, you know what, like
I immediately shut it down.
Yeah,
the first
immediately
time.
shut it down.
He was
like, I am not setting up a tour for this house because you're gonna get so stuck on it, because there were no projects that needed to be done, which was pretty rare for the budget we were looking in. We were looking kind of right at that like high 400s, like low 500s, which you can still find a stellar house, but typically it's like, okay, the bathroom is from
they're not
the
updated.
50s. Yeah. So stuff like that where we were like going into it thinking we'd have at least one project to do. So we find this house and there's truly nothing. And still, like, we have done nothing major in this house
I had to redo the stairs.
Okay, but we didn't have professionals have to redo the stairs. You like tweaked the stairs. It was fine. But anyways, so we go and he says, no, we're not seeing this house. I'm not. And it was the day that it listed that I sent it to him because I had those Zillow like push notifications hitting. We go and he says, no. 2 days later, the COVID shutdown happens. And it was like everyone kind of didn't know what to do. I don't know if you guys remember this, but like no one really knew what the shutdown meant. Like, should we stay like literally in our house or can we walk out? Can we walk our dog outside? It was very unclear at the time.
Everyone was too busy buying toilet paper and paper towels.
Yeah, and no one seriously, and no one in the real estate industry had come out when they announced the shutdown. The real estate industry was like, okay, so can we still tour clients? Like,
oh yeah, it was a big question. Yep.
Yeah, it was super gray and kind of weird. And so I thought like, okay, well, it's just me and Walker. Like, we're not seeing anyone outside of, our family. And so I said, let's just go tour the house. And so we go tour the house because everything's shut down. We're all working from home. It's kind of weird. And so we go tour the house and Walker calls the agent and he's like, I'm going to be honest. This is out of our, which by the way, also stellar thing that Walker did, our entire house search. Like, he was calling these agents to talk to them and get know what, I don't know, which I didn't understand I don't know if it's a normal thing to do, but you like reaching out to them and saying like, hey, I'm Walker Noon. Here's who I am. Here's where I stand. Just like this honesty approach to them got us this house because she was like, you know what? Our sellers don't know what's going to happen with COVID. And so put in your offer. Like, I understand where you're coming from, that it's lower, we're out of your price range. Put in your offer and, I'll talk with them, but like, yeah, they don't know what's going to happen with COVID either. They don't want this to sit on the market. There's so much fear and uncertainty at the time, and that's what got us this house, and it's been tenfold incredible of what we expected it to be.
And that's, I mean, tip that to you, Walker, because that's the thing agents should do. A lot don't, but hey, pick up the phone, talk to the agent, and that communication, it goes a long way still. We're not trading stocks yet, all computerized. That human-to-human interaction counts for things in real estate still. So, Walker, I know you're a numbers guy. Well, so 550 purchase price, you said, or 560?
555.
Okay, so 555. What type of financing was it?
So we did a 30-year loan. We actually bought down the points a little bit. So we're at 3.25% interest rate, which now is a little high, but at the time, great.
Oh, it's still great.
And then we ended up paying off PMI up front.
So 5% down conventional?
5% down conventional. Bought a point, paid out PMI. So we ended up putting down, I believe, close to like 36.
So 36 kind of all in at the, earnest money, down payment, loan cost, all the closing costs, right?
All in.
All right. So so under 40, which is great for a $500,000 asset. And then your monthly PITI, what's the approximate amount?
It is $2,600 and change, I believe.
Okay. Well, $2,600 is close enough.
Yeah.
And so that's your your monthly payments. That's what you're writing to the mortgage company every month. So that if the listeners out there, that's principal, interest, and then your escrow for taxes and also insurance. So those are your main costs. You guys are living there, and this is at least more than one bath. I know that. What's the bedroom bath mix?
4 bed, 3 bath.
So great mix.
So there's a master and with a master bath upstairs, and then 2 more bedrooms and a bathroom upstairs, and then almost like a private suite, you'd say, with its own bathroom, give or take, downstairs in the basement. 2,500 square feet. So it's got a good mix, a good spread out. The basement, we've almost, kind of rented it out as a little private suite. They're probably hearing our footsteps on top of them every now and then, but
yes, there's like a wet bar downstairs, and so there's a sink, and obviously Walker mentioned the bathroom, but like the roommate that lives down there now, he'll do his whole breakfast thing at the wet bar because it's like a mini kitchen setup kind of down there with cabinets. It's whatever, he can store his stuff that he needs down there. So
whoa, Walker, you haven't talked your Airbnb out yet? You got a wet bar down there?
He can't Airbnb it.
I'm joking.
They would have to come through the same entrance.
We'd have to wave at them. But.
And that's something I learned once I got here. Is there's other ways to house hack.
Yeah. So this, but this is a great layout. And so you guys moved in, and it sounds like your college roommate, since she was living with you, she came and lived with you guys because it was a natural progression, right?
Natural transition, and then I don't know what it is with all my college people. I went to college in Austin, so Austin and Denver are very similar. So a lot of my friends have actually shown interest in Denver, and so another college best friend ended up moving to Denver in June. Same situation. We were the only people she knew. Wanted to kind of figure out what pockets of Denver she was interested in before signing a lease somewhere because she was completely unfamiliar with Denver. And so we were like, great, we just bought a 4-bedroom house like 2 months ago. Come live in our house. And it was like communication's key with all of this. Like this entire process has had to be, full transparency. But with her, she told us like, I'm going to live there with you guys for a few months. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I won't be with you guys.
For free or for
rent? No. She paid us rent.
Great.
But like, I don't know. It wasn't it didn't have to be this weird structured roommate agreement just because we were able to communicate. Like she needed us for a few months. We were only going to get upside with her, staying in a bedroom that was going to be completely empty. And then that also transition to like my understanding of like, okay, you know what, we can manage more than just one person living with us. Like but that's the thing, like for me, my biggest hurdle was like, I don't want to live with someone I don't know when
you don't want Craigslist roommates.
Exactly. I didn't want Craigslist roommates because I was like, look, we bought this house. I love this house. I had certain expectations of when Walker and I moved in together that I didn't want to let go of, because it's different when you live with your college roommates or post-high school roommates, whatever your situation is. There's like this understanding that, not everything's going to be the way you want. And so letting that go for me was really tough, or what I thought would be letting that go was my biggest hurdle when Walker had brought up house hacking. Because I was like, I don't want to, we're set in our way. I'm set in my ways. So having, my college, great, like they were in our wedding. They were very close friendships to us. Live with us, where I knew that I had that communication already established in those friendships, kind of made me feel way better about like, if you're living here, I don't feel rude or weird asking you to follow weird rules that I like. And I bring up the no shoes one because a bunch of our friends laugh about this, but like I hate shoes in the house because I don't know, like to me that's gross. And so having all these people live here, we put in our roommate agreement, like, please don't wear shoes at the house, which sounds crazy, but it got me to the point of being comfortable. And it's not just that rule. It's like other, random things that might sound insane, but in reality, do they care about that? Not really. Like, they live in a great spot in Denver with people they know. Like the roommate thing doesn't have to look like how it looked like in college, where you're just sucking it up that someone does something that bothers you. You can really,
well, you actually set rules and say, hey, I'm an adult now, and I've realized, hey, here's the stuff, whatever. Hey, these 2, 3, 4 things are like this is my no-go list.
Yeah, exactly.
And here are the rules, and that's a great thing to, I think, for everyone to establish, especially for like, I think for house hacks, especially for like for females, especially in couples as well, just because, hey, make sure it fits. It's all about finding, hey, what's that right balance? Hey, this makes sense as a future rental, makes sense while we're living here, and you're not miserable as a person while you're there as well.
Yeah, and definitely this was one of the things I had to bring up to Walker. He didn't bring up these rules at all because, and I think typically with guys and girls, like guys are so much more, everything's fine, it's fine, and girls are a little bit more like, no, this kind of bothers me with roommate situations, we're typically cleaner and like neater and all that stuff. Not that Walker's not the cleanest person I know, but it was just like this
a joint effort.
Yeah, this was a
Come on, you gotta give me some credit.
Okay, you are clean. However,
I brought
for someone who shares an office with him, I have to admit he's a very clean, organized gentleman.
No, he's awesome. But I like going into the roommate thing, I was like a little bit anti no rules and anti guy roommates that I didn't know, because I was like, look, I'm a very clean person and that will not do well with me. But like setting the rules, or setting just like this conversational guideline up about,
it's like expectations.
Yeah,
kinda.
like just
Well, let me ask you this.
Open communicate, yeah.
Because I feel, I mean, Walker, I know you well enough. I mean, you want to lease, you want stuff in writing and documentation, right? And so you're still taking lead on everything in terms of the investment portfolio, right? So you're taking lead on here. How are you balancing out hey, you're wearing your landlord hat, and then you're also wearing your hat as a husband, and how are you making sure all that fits well for everyone?
That the roommate agreement was something big, and that's something I just kind of gave to her.
Told her to write out?
No. Well, we had kind of like a set.
Yeah, like we sat down and talked about it. Like what was important
just like
to
bullet
me.
points.
Bullet points,
okay.
exactly.
Bullet points. I got an example from one of my friends who's doing the same thing, and he had a good roommate agreement lined out. It kind of went through like it almost had it broken down like by room. So it has like living room, kitchen, pantry. I don't know. It went into great detail, and one of the great things of having a roommate with us in our rental house before we moved into this house is we kind of like sat down after a couple months. We're like, okay, like how do we want this to go? Like what do we want to set up front?
Yeah.
And that was a huge help, just having that to go off of, because it was just a little trial run. And then moving forward, we set expectations, and like looking back, it's been good, and it's kept us at those expectations. And that's one of the things that like now it's like it's a little exhausting. It's like, oh, I want to just like be able to just leave stuff and not worry about it for a while.
Yeah.
But
you have to follow your own rules, right?
We have to follow our own rules.
It holds us to a higher standard. Yeah,
like
for
sometimes
sure.
it keeps me up. Like it's like, yeah, I should probably do those dishes tonight. It's like, why do we have that in there? Can we just take it out tonight? Like,
no.
It's certain things like that.
So you went under contract the first week of April, moved in May, presumably?
May 1st.
So May 1st, so we're coming up on, almost a year now. So you've had two of your roommates, Nina, from college.
Right.
But there's been some turnover. I don't know the exact details. I've heard just Walker, as we've been chit-chatting, like he mentioned, oh, yeah, someone's coming, someone's going.
Yeah.
But there's been some non-college friend roommates, right?
You wouldn't believe the flip that's happened. So the roommate that moved in June, who told us she was temporary, she ended up, picking a spot, kind of like, it's called 9th & Co. They're trying to brand that section of the neighborhood, but it's like Colorado, kind of Hale neighborhood. Mm-hmm. A bunch of really new, awesome apartments are right there. So she ended up moving there, and we found through one of our high school friends. Walker and I have been together since high school, so like I feel like there's a lot of trust that goes on, and like, oh, it's someone I know from high school, because I'm like, yes, I know them from high school too. So anyways,
there's not many friends that
there's
aren't
not many like separate friends that we have. Yeah. So we found, or one of our high school friends actually connected us to our first male roommate, who he was great friends with in college, and said like, hey, this guy moved to Denver, doesn't really know anyone, he's living in an apartment by himself, kind of just wants like that roommate scene. And we were like, yeah, this mutual friend's one of the most trustworthy people, nicest people I've met ever. So we're like, yeah, for sure. Guy moves in, is the exact persona of this high school friend, like so kind, so I don't know, just
so you still like you remember him in high school.
Yeah, well, so it's like a
I'm
mutual
sorry,
friend.
the friend.
Yes,
the friend.
It's a mutual friend that moved in with us, but
did you run a background check?
The funny thing was he was from Texas, from Houston, went to a rival high school of ours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, yeah,
it's crazy, the connection.
It's the whole like 6 degrees of separation.
It's a weird,
thing.
yeah. Like my cousin texted me, and she's like, "Oh, hey, I know him from high school," and I'm like, "What? I've never met this guy in my life." But, anyways, yeah, he's been awesome, and also was a huge piece to me, like feeling great about this decision that we made, because even when we had a couple, I was still waiting for it to hit the fan. I was like, what am I gonna break? Am I gonna not like this?
Well, I think because we chat a few days ago in preparation to kind of get our outline on here, you were saying people's reactions, if I'm gonna paraphrase this, that like from there's hey, you guys are living with roommates as boyfriend, girlfriend, or engaged couple versus living with roommates as a married couple. And it was very interesting what you said other people's perceptions of that was.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So like a lot of my girlfriends have like I've almost had to coach them in a conversation about like, this was a decision we made as a married couple, looking at our personal finances and where we want to be. And for them, it was really weird. Like, if Walker and I weren't married, she was like, I can totally see that because, you know, not she. There's several, you know, of my friends that I've had to talk to about this. And even our parents, like, they kind of were pretty...
Both sets of these? Or this?
Both sets of parents were really... Like, this is weird,
And
y'all. Why
so
are
not
you
worried.
doing
I'm
this?
sorry. So
And
not worried about you guys living together before marriage, but worried about the roommate situation.
Yes, they were
okay.
worried. Yeah, they did not care at all. That
So
we
very
lived
traditional
together
then, huh?
unmarried, but they
Which
both
I
cared.
guess they brought that up to you because I didn't hear much of that.
Oh my gosh, I heard all of it from our mom.
Like my dad was like, okay, interesting.
yeah,
that was about it.
Both of our moms had a fit about this, and
So it's more the guy and the girl is very
Yes,
different. Okay.
and it's the same with my
Yeah.
friends. So maybe it is more of a
But that
female
was what was so
thing.
interesting to me. You said like I've never just like
Yeah,
because you said it was just so black and white.
I know. It was so black and white because we've never had any of our guy friends be like, oh, y'all have roommates? That's weird. But several of my girlfriends have been like, are you guys just like really, like, do you guys have no money or something? Like, it's been such a weird, like, are you okay? I'm like, yes, we're totally fine. We consciously made this decision so that in a year from now, we can buy another house. And they haven't figured out that this is not a, like, right now Band-Aid. The choice we made was a, like, in a year we want to buy another house, so we are doing this untraditional style of life, whatever you want to call it. We're doing this sacrifice now so that in a year we have 2 properties, and we're 20, like, we're turning 26 this year. I don't know any of our friends that are going to have 2 properties. Knock on wood, that's our goal this year, but, like, yeah, it is weird, and, you know, sometimes it's stressful. And there is a lot of education that I would encourage people who are interested in this. Like, you do have to, like, there are sacrifices you're going to have to make, and you're going to have to figure out what's important to me and what's not, and communicate that. And it is a different way of life, but truly I would not do this past year differently, or the past, I guess it's been 15 months probably that we've had roommates. Like, we have changed, you know, a trajectory of what our 20s are going to look like, what our 30s are going to look like, because we're now able to talk about buying another house 10 months after we just bought our first one that's $500,000, which is crazy. But it's just like, in the grand scheme of things, did this year look differently than I probably thought my 25th year of living with, you know, we've been married almost 2 years now. Like, did I think that this would be our story? No. But did it change our future story? 1,000%. Like 1,000%. And just listening to people talk about it helps so much. Like, it helps it not feel so weird and so different. Like, it helps you get excited about what's coming because of, and it's not even a sacrifice. Like, it sounds like it's a sacrifice, and maybe I said that, you know, moments ago, but it's living with like, it's the same as in college. Like, I feel the same. You go home, there's always someone to do something with, there's always someone to, like, banter with, watch a show with, whatever. Like, there's so many fun aspects of having roommates that I think everyone's so scared of the negative aspects. And it's kind of like shift your mentality a little bit. It's temporary. We're not going to have roommates till we're 50, you know. We're not going to have roommates probably next year. So I don't know. It's just like education for sure. And just coming to grips with what's important and communicating it. And then you can literally change your whole story, which is crazy to me because I was so anti 18 months ago.
So I mean, I know you guys know, like, you know, the numbers of compounding and buying properties while you're young and for low money down and all this, but, like, from a big picture, how is this changing your guys' trajectory? Because obviously if you do this, you can definitely retire before Social Security age, but what's the general, like, kind of like big future goals and then the next steps for number 2?
I mean, main goal is just to retire early. That number's changed every time I talk to Nina. The number goes down.
As far as just age or
The
time
age,
frame?
it started at 50, 45, 40. It might be at 35 or 30 now. I don't know. But I mean, that's the future goal, and why we're young without kids. The goal is to just kind of build up as many properties as we can, moving and doing the Nomad strategy and doing the owner-occupied loan, putting 5% down, just making the sacrifice now to, and I think now that's like something. When we bought this house, it was such kind of like a nice house that I think our plan as of now is we're going to move back in later on once we start having kids. But until then, like, just kind of keep it going. Hopefully, the goal is to buy one a year. I can see that kind of slowing down. I think with our next house, we're going to just take it easy, and it's just going to be us. We've had our fun with roommates, our experience with it, and it was a great learning experience. But
is it going to slow down you guys? I mean, because there's the Nomad strategy, and that's very different than having 2 or 3 roommates. So you're going to slow down like the pace of acquisition, or just cut out the roommates, or both?
I think we'll for sure cut out the roommates in our next property. Partly because we're looking at smaller properties. Like, before, our search was no smaller than a 3-bedroom because we knew we were looking with roommates. And this next one, we're kind of going into, we've broadened the search to fall down to like a 2-bedroom. Our family's in Texas, so we do have our family come visit us pretty frequently. So having the extra room
but
is
can you
important.
share a bathroom with them?
Yeah, for the weekend, yeah, whatever. That's fine. I can do that. It'll
Okay.
do. But yeah, so I think we'll drop the roommates for the next house. But not to say if there's a stellar house that's a 4-bedroom, we wouldn't act on that. But I think that's just kind of where we're at.
yeah, so it'll probably slow down the acquisitions because, I mean, last year in the 7 months we owned our place and had roommates, we got about $12,000 in rent.
So that approximately paid for, if it $12,000 rent, that paid for what, about 5 months of the year with your PITI? Right, approximately, because you're about $2,500 a month, or we said 26.
Right.
Okay,
Give or take, yeah.
So for 7 months, they paid for 4 to 5 months worth of your house.
Yeah, actually, we totally forgot. I completely forgot in my story. So I mentioned it was a 4-bedroom. So obviously Walker and I are in one. We had the original roommate has been with us forever. She's in the second one upstairs. And then we had that male roommate downstairs. So we've still had like a guest room. During COVID, we used it as an office because everyone was working from home at the time. So it was kind of like we needed that space.
Oh, yeah.
So now Walker's in the office every day. The roommate from downstairs, he also goes into the office every day. And I, in January, started going in about half the week. So someone reached out to us. This is how far I've come. So pat myself on the back here.
A random roommate.
We had a random roommate who reached out to me through like the Denver roommates Facebook group. Back when we'd bought our house, and she was looking for a place to live, and for one reason or another, she ended up finding a job that was pretty far from our house. So she was like, actually, this, isn't the best move for me. And I was like, okay, no worries. We filled it with my other college roommates. I was like, this is great. But she reached out to me in December and said like, hey, I'm moving to Phoenix. She just got engaged. I'm moving to Phoenix with my fiance, but I need to be in Denver for the next 2 months. Do you have a room?
She reached out like December 25th. 26th.
Yeah,
like on Christmas?
December.
But it was like
so
the
late.
last like few days
Yeah.
of December and needed a place in January. And
By
it was
like January 1, hoping.
January
Yeah,
1.
January
it was like,
1.
I was like, that's a little.
And I like looked at Walker, and Walker was like, yeah, but I really like having that office. And I was like, yeah, but no one's in there anymore. It's just kind of
So
sitting
you were the more
Yes!
proponent one on here?
I'm the one who pushed this, which I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, it kind of switched.
I know. It's completely switched. So
How did that happen?
That's why I put her in charge of finding the roommates.
Yeah, so I like talk Walker. Walker's like, no, which is just completely opposite. But Walker's like, no, for this 30-minute conversation. I'm like, yes, Walker, it is temporary. We will literally pay $0 personally. If you break out the mortgage with all the rent that we're receiving, if we were to add her for 2 months, which ended up happening, we paid, like, our portion was $0. You know what I'm saying? So our mortgage was completely covered. It was 2 months of the year. Did we notice that she was there? barely, because we're all in the office every day. We were skiing on weekends. Like, we're still...
She was gone more than we were.
Her job was, she had some evening shift. So, like, when we were there at night, it was just
it's a perfect roommate
situation.
I'm not. She was there for 2 months. I think I might have saw her 10 times.
Yeah.
Like, it
was... I'm not saying that that's how it's going to be for everyone, but I'm just saying, like, did we notice the impact of just having that one additional room rented the past 2 months? Yeah, we did. That money went straight towards the next house fund. And I'm like, that's awesome.
You notice the check a lot more, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But,
so, kind of moving forward, you get in the second house, and it sounds like it's more of a nomad style where you guys have no roommates. Learning from this, are there any, like, must-haves or, you know... Has your buying criteria changed, both as like a primary residence and also as your future rental property number 2?
That's a great question. I think having gotten this house first to know like, hey, that can be our future house, I think that also like lowers our standards a little bit for these next houses. Like, we're not buying our future house. It's going to be more of like we're seeing it as a rental later down the road, which we're not going to buy a complete dump. But I think it just kind of like gives us that little more like relaxed feeling. It's like, hey, we have like somewhere to fall back on. It's kind of nice to do that. As far as everything else, like if we're not having roommates, like there's a lot less kind of things we're looking for. And what would you say?
I'd say a common thing that's come up is a yard. Like, we need a yard. That's a non-negotiable.
We've got chickens.
We got chickens as our
COVID chickens
purchase.
And dogs, right?
Chickens and dogs.
Yeah, chickens and dogs. Like,
they're free range.
So it's always been that townhouses and condos are kind of cut out of our conversation. We've never even gone to look at those.
Has Walker talked to you about new build townhomes last couple of months?
No.
No.
Are we talking about
I'm just saying that's been a trend recently. I wasn't sure.
We haven't quite gotten the search going yet. It's more like we're figuring out, like, one roommate just moved out, the one that just moved in
the
2 months ago.
Just moved out last week.
Another one is actually moving out, and so back to kind of like the business and husband hat. He signed in October and signed a 6 months lease, which ends April 30th, and he just came to us the other day and he's like, hey, actually one of my best friends from growing up is moving here March 15th. Like, we were thinking about moving in together. Like, I'll stay throughout the lease and then move in with him. But he's finding a place and he's just going to take care of it until I move in with him. And I was like, why would you do that? I was like, thanks for telling us, but like, free to go. Like, take care, like, go live with him. We're not going to hold you back. Like, we signed a lease. It's more for liability, and this is like having friends there, like getting to know them. Like, it's like, oh, okay, like you want to be lenient. I'm not gonna like lay the hammer down and be like, no, you're staying until your lease ends. It was just kind of like being nice, and the fact that he communicated with us was like a great
goes a
thing.
long way, doesn't it?
It was so far
a tremendous benefit of it, and he like felt bad, and I was like, dude, thanks for telling us. Like, that's all we can ask for, and he's been great to have, and he's, I think, moving out in the middle of this month.
Yeah. But it's just like one of those things where I'm like, we're not, an apartment complex where they're going to charge you to break your lease. Like, we're just, like, we're friends with this guy. We want to be friends with him and continue that friendship after he moves out with us. So we would never, you'd get nothing by being mean and hard to people. Like, nothing. So yeah, that was one of the surprises with the roommates, but not something that we were like stressed about or have ill feelings towards. Like, communication, again, it's been the biggest.
So as we wrap up here, Dean, I want to ask you a couple questions, since obviously I said earlier it's a very male dominated industry, and more women need, I think, more encouragement from other women. So what advice or tips can you give, whether it's a single female house hacker out there, or married to someone else? Like, what advice would you give to female house hackers out there in your shoes, like 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, I would say, and I said this earlier, but like, if you're interested in it at all, read about it, listen to people who've done it, because I needed the encouragement. Like, Walker was the encouragement for me to take this step. But if you're if your spouse isn't into it, or if you're personally just like not sure if you can handle being a landlord, it's not, it really is kind of like living with your roommates that most people have had in their life. You've lived with, whoever, your friends or random people. It's a very similar feeling, but then there's also the feeling of like, yeah, you will get frustrated because sometimes people don't wipe up the counter or something. Like they made a mess. And then just remember, like, I have 2 people paying me like $900 a month to like take the 10 seconds to wipe up the counter. And it can really change your perspective from being frustrated to being like, you know what? I'm working hard right now and I'm earning this. And in a few months, in a couple years, I'm going to look back on this time and not remember that. I'm just going to realize and recognize the impact on my personal financial, or if you are with, you're married or whatever, you have joint finances, the impact financially is, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm personally a huge financially driven, like I'm not money driven, but at the same time, do I want the option of when I'm 45 saying like, if I don't have to work, or if I don't want to work, or if I want to do different work that maybe has a smaller paycheck, whatever, like those options are all available to me. One of the conversations I've had with a very important friend to me recently, she had said something like, yeah, I'll be working till I'm 65. And it hit me in that moment. Like, I don't live with that mindset. Like, if I want to work until 65, that's awesome. That's great. And, I hope whatever I'm doing, I really enjoy. But, making these decisions today, I feel no obligation or expectation that I'll be working until I'm 65. So that's all I'd say.
That's great advice. So Walker, looking back here, you said at the beginning of the podcast that, after hearing Nina's story of how you introduced your house hacking, you're like, yeah, I could have played that differently. So advice to guys out there as they're talking to their girlfriends, fiancés, wives, what tip would you give them?
I would say start early. Start early, bring it up early, but have a plan. Go with the plan. Don't be like, hey, let's have roommates. Like, start with the why. Give them the reasons why it can benefit you, but you have to look into the future, because it's not that benefit while you're living there. Like, you're making a sacrifice that's hard to kind of like get through to someone. So I think, just open communications, and then just setting ground rules. Luckily for us, we had that trial run with a roommate living with us in our rental. And that just kind of gave us like a perspective. It's like, oh, well, she's paying for a third of the rent. Like, what could that do in our next house? And like, I'm glad we had that, but other people that don't have that, I think it's just getting out in front of it. Like, setting your expectations, figuring out like, what do we want in a roommate, but what can we not have? And I think the nice thing about house hacking is you can be very selective about your roommates, which we luckily have had friends live with us, but you can sit them down and interview them and kind of really be selective, which is nice. And when you're just renting out an investment property, you don't have that privilege. But I would say the big thing is just kind of communication, getting out in front of it, figuring out what you want and what you don't want. And once you get people, I would initially just sign up to like a shorter term lease, kind of figure out, hey, is this something we want to do? Is this someone we want here? And and then just be kind of open-minded about it. Don't be like, your expectations are going to be kind of high, but like, just, I don't know. It's, yeah. It's I wish I could put myself in my shoes back then to really see like kind of what all had happened. But I was terrible about communicating it. And I'm lucky that she kind of opened up to it. It's been a great experience.
Your interest in it, like what you're interested in, other people are interested in. And like, you were so interested in this, so I had to give it a shot. Like, I had to know why you were so fixed on this.
So like, it just wore off on you. Like, hey, if he's that excited about it.
Yeah, because Walker's one of the smartest people I know. So I'm like, if he's so like, this is a good decision, then obviously I have to give it at least, like at least have to go learn about it. I don't have to act on everything, but like it ended up being a life-changing decision, and I can't say that enough. So,
well, guys, I have to say, I mean, as a couple, you said you're turning 26 this year.
We're 26 this year.
Yeah, you guys are on track. I mean, keep it up. I mean, this is very impressive. And just Walker, as you're, doing all the real estate stuff, man, you guys are going to be on like a very good trajectory, and you'll definitely be retiring before your friend that's 65 I would think by hopefully a couple decades. So like just great job, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's also one of the things I learned, that it's a slow ride. It's just, don't have the expectations of, it's going to be tomorrow. Like getting into day trading, getting all these trading things, it's like, you want wealth fast, but that's one of the things that, like, just enjoy the ride. It's going to be a while, and it's huge to like just plan for the future. Know where you want to go, know what the next step is, and just it's those small steps that just build up.
Yeah.
That is very, very well said. All right, so if guys or if listeners want to reach out to you guys, what's the best way to reach out to you? Just email you, Walker. If they want to kind of hear your guys' story, pick your brains, find properties, just email you or?
Email me, yeah.
Yeah, any female or male, but if any of the women have any questions for me and specifically, definitely feel free to reach out as well.
Cool, so I can put your guys' emails in the show notes?
Definitely.
All right.
That works. Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you. This was awesome. This was fun.
Enjoyed it.